So professional camera, but maybe we should do something about the Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. You know, we have to have some nicer. All right. So back to establishing a daily practice. So what we discussed before the break, the 6 preliminary practices and the reasons why to do that. Right. We talked about the needs for cleaning. Yeah, it's an important aspect of cleaning the mind, right? That's what it is. It's kind of, if the mind has clarity, it's easier to think about things. Yeah? So if you're in a clear environment, it has a very similar kind of aspects, right? Yeah. So that's, if you do retreats, and you do retreats, unless you're an incredible practitioner, in a nice environment where, where you can see mountains and blue skies and, and snow mountains. It's in one way, it uplifts the mind, makes the mind open. That's why it's been recommended, In the same way here, to have a clean room, then if things are organized, also the mind becomes more organized, right? So that's what we discussed. And then making these, nice images of the representatives of Buddha's body, speech, and mind, as we discussed, to get inspired, and then, to sit and make offerings in front of that, and then to have the right posture, as we discussed, and then to visualize on top of that, to visualize a merit field. So there's kind of a refuge field, there's different terminologies, and a merit field. So when you take a refuge, for example, you visualize mainly Sakyamuni Buddha in front, right? Then when you have a merit field, you can have any Buddha form you feel inspired with. So it's kind of, you can have, like if in the Gelug tradition, we have, for example, Lama Zopa and 2 sons, and that is surrounded by all kind of other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, right? Yeah, that's one possibility. If you are more inclined with the Nyingma tradition, you can visualize Guru Pema Sambhava in front, right? Or with the Kagyu tradition, Jasimila Reba, for example, or Virupa or Sakya Pandita for the Sakya tradition, right? So that's individual within the 4 traditions in Tibet, or in Jonang or Bön or whatsoever. They have their own kind of what is, so to say, merit field, right? That means a kind of way to organize because of the lineage and because of feeling inspired by that, so that you can change according to your inspiration, Yeah. And according to the retreat. Sometimes we do retreats on in particular practice, so that's the main thing to emphasize. So then also we visualize like this in front. Yeah? So that's why you will see different images sometimes in Buddhist temples, where a big gathering around one principal figure, like either Lama Tsongkhapa or, Guru Pema Sambhava or another kind of important person. That's then surrounded by other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So then you also know that, if you see this kind of, sometimes it's been painted as a tree, right? So in the center is this main kind of holder of that particular tradition, and then surrounding are the different deities of the 4 classes of the Vajrayana, for example, and then the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, Sravakas, Prachekas, so there's a kind of also a sequence in the merit field. It's also important to know that. That there's a sequence. So what is that sequence? Of course, most important is Buddha Sakyamuni or Lama Tsongkhapa as being a Buddha, right? So that's the main figure. And then there are the 4 classes of Tantra, or the Vajrayana, right? And then below that are all, Buddhas, and then Bodhisattvas, and then Sravakas and Prachekas, right? Yeah. So that's a kind of a system, In similar way, I expressed to you that it's good to have your books on the highest place, right? Yeah. So in a similar way, in this merit field, there's a kind of division of putting different kind of deities or Buddhas in a particular order, according to the level of practice, right? Yeah. So, it's good to know, because sometimes you see those images on the internet, probably more than at Jamyang at the moment, because we don't see you that often here. So yeah, but yeah, then you know, oh, there's a kind of merit field. Oh, this is the reason why we have all these kind of figures. Then you know that. Yeah, so for yourself, you use, and then certain of these things, they come from the historical resources, right? Or from a secret vision. It can happen that a kind of certain assembly is being put together. Yeah, so that's important to know. Yeah. And then also those who have taken refuge, it's also important to know that in that merit field, you only have, or field of refuge, you only have beings who are developed, who are Arya beings, because we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? Yeah, so if you take refuge in those in the merit field, there are Buddhas and Arya beings, right? Yeah, meaning people who have a direct perception of emptiness, who are a reliable object of refuge. You see that? So worldly spirits or worldly gods, you don't put them in the refuge field, for example. Yeah, that's kind of, kind of thing to know if you see those images and you can relate to that, or you want to build up something yourself, you can do that. Yeah. And then we just discussed the seven-limb prayer. Yeah, in that one, yeah, it's in the 7 lines. It is the most condensed form, as we went over. That reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. Right. So when you make prostrations, here says respectfully. Goes from Gyume, it says Gyume Gone. So Gyume means to respect, right? So sometimes translated reverently or with respect. So meaning with respect to the object. And what is respect is understanding, the qualities of the object that we respect, right? So out of respect, we make prostrations. Yeah? So the Buddha doesn't care if you make prostrations to him or if it's a female Buddha to her. They don't really. From their own side, there's no need, right? But for our side, there's a need. So that's why we make prostrations. And the same in a monastic environment or traditional teachings, where you see sometimes people making prostrations to the teacher. Same thing, right? It's not out of to put the teacher somewhere high up, but it's talked about the Dharma, right? The object that is being discussed, the subject, so to say. That's kind of out of respect for that. And of course, if you have a connection with a teacher, then there's kind of paying respect to that aspect, because thanks to that aspect you develop, right? So same here, if you have an altar, thanks to the aspiration of the altar, you're able to accumulate merit, purify negative deeds, etc. So that's why we make prostrations. Yeah? So prostration of body, speech, and mind, it says. So meaning that when you prostrate, you can see them. Yeah. So you see that? Normally, there's our tradition. Yeah? You put your thumbs inside and then close your hands like that. Yeah? So meaning the jewel of bodhicitta, you can say, or 2 bodhicittas. You can sometimes think that wisdom and bodhicitta, right? So the method aspect is mostly referred to the left side, yeah? And then the right side to the method aspect. So you can think bodhicitta joins with emptiness, right? That's one thing. You have 5 fingers. You can think about 5 parts. There's many, things to think about. But yeah, just keep it simple. So yeah, that's kind of the way we represent in our tradition, paying homage with the hands. So there's the body aspect, and then we will show you how to do prostration. So sometimes you touch the crown first, then the forehead. Yeah. So the crown, touching the crown, creates a kind of cause for the Ushnishna of the Buddha to be generated in the future. If you see on the Buddha this kind of thing on the Ushnishna on top of the head of the Buddha, right? It's kind of a sign of enlightenment. Yeah? So if you prostrate and you do that first, by understand, you create a cause for that to happen in the future. Yeah. So that's why we do that. And then we put here, your third eye, so to say. Yeah, in India sometimes people were interested in opening the third eye and something like a course and opening the third eye. But yeah, we don't do that. But yeah, you put it there because that represents the body. I talked about Vajrayana, one of the Buddha families for the form aggregate. Remember? That's why it's called the posture of Vajrayana. Yeah? So at this point, is referring to the form aspect of Buddha. So if you touch there, you think you create a cause for the holy body of the Buddha, right? You see that? Yeah. At the same time, you think you purify all negative deeds of the body. You know, when you do prostrations. So we know this in the 10 non-virtues, we have killing, sexual misconduct, and stealing, right? So you think that gets purified by touching that. Then we touch, you know, some people do like this, some people do like that. Do like this. So now in COVID, maybe you do like that. Not like here. No, but yeah. So washing your hands, of course, before. Yeah. So if you do like this or like that, that represents the speech, right? Yeah. Throat or the mouth represents the speech. So if you do like this or like this, actually you purify all the negativities of the speech, right? And it transforms in the speech of the Buddha. You see that? Yeah. So that's where you touch there. Then you still see, oh, now I have a cameraman. So now, then you touch here, and that actually you confess all negativities of the mind, and you transform the mind in the mind of the Buddha. You know, you see that? Yeah. So that's one interpretation of respectfully I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. That's one aspect. Another aspect is that we physically prostrate, which is the body aspect. While we prostrate, we recite either the 7-limb prayer or the 30 Buddhas, the names of the 30 Buddhas of confession. So that's the speech, right? You see that? So when you prostrate, then physically you prostrate, but verbally you express things. Or you say Sangye Chöden Sogni Sonamla, whatever you recite is a verbal expression, right? So that's the verbal aspect. And then mentally you think, why are you prostrating with the 4 opponent powers? You have to do there, not. So while you meditate on the 4 opponent powers, that's the mental aspect. So there's another explanation of body, speech, and mind. You see that? Yeah? Yeah. So there's 2 types of prostrations. A short one and a long one. Yeah, so the short one, I'll first tell you, there's, you know, your feet are on the ground already, right? Then your knees, they go, and then your hands go, and your forehead goes. Yeah, so that's short prostration. And there's a full length one that you go all the way. You know? Yeah. So that's, and then, yeah, there's, with touching those 3 points, you have body, speech, and mind, representatives, right? Or representing the transformation. It's all about to transform, meaning to purify the negative aspects and acquire the qualities, right? So Buddha or Sangye has those 2 aspects, right? Sang is to purify. Gye means to increase. Yeah? So all these aspects of every practice we do represents that. So if you touch the body, you know, speech and mind, it represents this transformation of purifying negative deeds and acquire the qualities of the Buddha, or transforming into the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, right? Yeah. So that's yeah. Yeah. What want to do? Yeah. You look. I'd be the movie star, but without a mic, because then if I do it with a mic, then probably it's going to be goes in the process.
Just put the microphone down the table.
Yeah, maybe I can shout. If you can hear.
I can.
No? Just put like here. I just prostrate to
the. Hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Geshe-la, we can. Yeah, we can still hear you. Yeah.
Can you still hear me now?
Yes, very
now?
clear. Yeah, clear.
So I have this Zen.
Thomas, you got to go quite far away from Geshe-la.
You have to see, you can see, right?
Yeah.
Cannot.
Sorry, this is also the first time we do this, so yeah, bear with us. So
You have to go a bit further back, sure.
Further away, Geshe-la.
You can hear me?
Yeah, yes,
further.
but you have to go behind, a bit more behind.
Then you can't hear me anymore.
Okay, we can still see you. Thank you.
So if you want to see, you need to go further back to see it on the floor.
You can see you now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see you.
I can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So
Very
then,
clear.
yeah, so before you start, you have to, of course, generate 4 opponent powers, no? And then you take refuge and some other things. We go over that later to make the practice complete, you know. So then when you do prostrations, same thing, as we just explained. You fold your hands like that, and then you start to touch the crown, then forehead, then the speech aspect, right? Throat or mouth, and then the heart. You see? The mind aspect. And then, if you do first long, right, then you go all the way down. Yeah? So the important thing is not put your hands like this on the floor. Put them always like that. Very nice, all together. There's many reasons for that. But, otherwise you will be born in different places. So put like that. Yeah. So then you go down. You can still see. Yeah. Go down like that. And yeah, if you do this wood, but you can have sliders or something like that, or something for your knees, right? If you do a few more. Some practical things. Yeah. So you go down, and then you put your whole body on the floor, and you can do like this. You see? That again creates the forces for the Usmishna will Buddha. Yeah? And then you go up. So the thing is, if you go down, it's very important to get up. If you do a few prostrations and you get tired, it's better to rest like this than to rest on the floor. Because if you get up, you think I'm leaving samsara. You see? So you get up. Or I can go for 20% beings. I go down to the lower states of rebirth to help them. And I come up, you know, out of samsara. And go in to help them. So there's many ways you can. I feel like I'm in a show. You know? Yeah, so yeah. Again, one more time. So when you come back, so I come back, right? Then again you do this 3 times, right? Yeah? So then you finish if you do 3 prostrations. You can do 3 prostrations like that. So that's the long one. Yeah? Yeah, I do one more time, then you can see. So here. Yeah, so that's the long prostration. There's also a mantra you can recite, you know, while doing prostration. So if you do that, if you haven't memorized 35 Buddhas, then also the speech comes, right? If you have the speech, the mind is there by thinking to purify, so you can also do that. Namo, Namo, Mandu, Sri, Namo, Sri, Sri, Namo, Namo, Sri, Soha. So that mantra we give to you, if you recite that mantra while doing long prostrations 3 times a day, has a potential to achieve a part of C. So it's a very powerful mantra, yeah, for long prostrations. So then the short prostration is just as explained, just with the knees on the floor, as this, like this. No? You touch the same points, yeah? And then you just put the hands flat, the knees on the floor, and then touch with the forehead. Then go up. So it's important to go out quick, to go out of samsara, to eliminate conflictions. Yeah? Is that clear?
Yes.
Oh.
Very clear. Geshe-la,
Yes?
what if people cannot do like prostration because they got problems with their legs and hips?
Okay, I tell you. First, sit down and explain.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay.
So then, if you, I mean, prostrations in this case is a physical thing, right? So if it's difficult to prostrate, there are a few things, you know, for the knees it's always important to put something soft on the floor, you know? Especially when you do quite a few prostrations, it's very important to have something soft for the knees, something soft for the chest and your head. You know, people would just start with prostrations, then this area is gonna erase a little bit of skin. If you do accumulation of prostrations and you do that quite a bit, then that happens, you know? So it's important to have something there. Then, if you have a wooden floor, it's perfect. You have a few sliders, as I call it. You know, like square pieces of cloth, a little bit thick, that slides easily. Or if you have carpet in your room, you can have a kind of particular blankets. You know, it's easier to slide on your carpet. Sometimes certain carpets, they produce heat between when the movement comes. So have a big towel or a piece of thick cloth, of cotton or something where it doesn't happen, you know, you can do that. Yeah. Then if there's a problem physically that you cannot do prostrations because you cannot bend or you cannot physically, you cannot do a long prostration, then you can do short. If you cannot do short, then you can just sit, right? And visualize, you know, it's true, no? Also, when you do prostrations and you choose one, you try to visualize countless bodies of yourself, you know, all making prostrations. So that's in accordance with the Samatha aspect of visualization. Yeah, then also, and each of those bodies, they also recite either this mantra that I just expressed, right? Or the names of the 35 Buddhas of confession. So you imagine all those Buddhas doing that. So if you have a problem with your knees, or physically you cannot do prostrations at all, then you can just sit and recite like that, you know, and visualize. And imagine you're making all these kind of prostrations. You know? Yeah, so that's a few techniques that can be used to, you know, accumulate amount. Then a very important related aspect to this is to recite the 35 Buddhas of confession, you know, as a, we get you, yeah, I promise we will get you the booklets. So the 35 Buddhas of confession is a prayer that names also 35 Buddhas, right? And each of those 35 Buddhas, if you just merely recite their names, purifies a particular negative karma. You know? That means that when they were bodhisattvas, they made strong, you know, incredible strong kind of prayers. Whoever in the future recites my name, may this person purifies all negativities of the body. Or whoever recites my name in the future, may all negativities of the speech be purified, or all the mind, or all in relation with this object, or in relation with the teachers, or all in relation with this aspect, you know. So that means there's a collection of 35 names that is being recited. Yeah? So if you're really into it, then it's good to memorize those names, right? Because if you memorize, if you're making physical prostrations, you cannot look at the paper, right? You cannot read from the screen or from a paper, you know. If you have memorized it, you can just recite it, you know. So you just every day you try to recite, or every few days you memorize one name and then move to the next name. It's possible, no? Even I remember when I was working in an office in Zwolle in the Netherlands, just Buddhist, I used to memorize it on my bicycle, going to the bus before I went into the bus to the office. Yeah. So you can do it. You know? Yeah. So just to try to memorize these names, you know, it's very powerful, because if you recite a name, it has this potential, right? Next to making the prostration, it has the potential to purify. You see that? And then when you sit, you also just recite, right? So that's the benefit of reciting from memory. If you haven't memorized it, and memorization is not that easy, then you can also put on a tape. Now we have MP3, right? So you play it on whatever device you have. There's many tunes you can find online, maybe. Rinpoche has a few, so that a person who recites these 35 Buddhas of confession. And then slowly you learn to recite it yourself. You can memorize it either in English or memorize it in Tibetan, you know, so whatever is suitable. Because that has an extra dimension of purification practice. Because just merely reciting a name, it purifies. And that mantra, what I said, O Namo Manjushri, Namo Shri, Namo Uttama Shri Soha, that particular mantra, if you recite it 3 times with 3 long prostrations every day, it has a potential, you know, to achieve the power of seeing, right? So it's quite amazing. You know? So that's very, we will send you a few booklets. So for sure, it's in the booklet of the Mahayana precepts, you know, that mantra. So if you recite that mantra while prostrating, it's not a very long mantra, very easy to memorize, then it has incredible benefit. And then you do first that mantra, and then you recite the 35 Buddhas of confession, right? And also we get you some booklets of how to do the 35 Buddhas of confession. So then, after you recite the 35 Buddhas of confession, the names, so to say, there is two aspects to the prayer, right? One aspect is to confess negative deeds, and also aspect is also in relation with rejoicing. So also you can see already two of the important limbs of the 7-limb prayer are there next to prostration, right? So many practices we see, most of them have all these 7 limbs. Yeah. So that's from the point of view of making prostrations. Yeah. So in the short version, it says, "Reverently I prostrate in my body, speech, and mind." We just talked about. So for the Tumshak, we say the 35 Buddhas of confession. Maybe another time. But I was planning to do it next year. I said in September. This is just, I give you now the overview, right? And slowly you start to do some practices. And then in September next year, we have one weekend dedicated to preliminary practices. And that includes explanations and transmissions, maybe, if there's interest, of these kind of practices. So more detailed. If I give you now all the detailed explanations, then probably you will freak out. Or you just put it on the desk instead of doing it. So we want to prevent that from happening. So today and tomorrow we give you an idea of the 37 practices, the 35 Buddhas of confession, how to do prostrations, right? And then we also, tomorrow I will explain Vajrasattva practice. And also I was just thinking I will compile something of Vajrasattva practice that is related to Kriya Tantra aspect of Vajrasattva, because I looked online in the last few days and it's all, highest Yoga Tantra practices, and for beginners maybe, maybe we can do it later. So I compile something that is easier also to relate to. So anyway, we'll discuss that tomorrow, Vajrasattva. So there's 2 purification practices, right? Prostrations of 35 Buddhas of confession and Vajrasattva. So if you do this 35 Buddhas of confession, reciting this mantra, then reciting the 35 names, and then what you do normally, I find beneficial, when you accumulate prostrations, there's different ways of accumulation. You can recite, you can do like a certain amount of prostrations to each Buddha. You have 35 Buddhas, right? So there's different ways of visualizing them. And it's either, now it becomes very complicated all of a sudden. So there's also an easy way to visualize, according to the 5 Buddha families. So that means that the 35 Buddhas are grouped in 5 groups, right? So each of those 5 groups represents one Buddha. Like we just discussed, the Buddha Vajrayana, right, is in relation with the form aggregate. So in that way, we have other Buddhas, Buddhas of confession, so to say. So the 35 Buddhas are grouped in 5 groups. And each of those 5 groups, within the group, they all look the same. So that makes the visualization easier. So there's also other interpretations of Arya Nagarjuna and Lama Tsongkhapa's visions, and many other with different implements or different hand mudras and colors, but that's initially a little bit difficult, right? So Lama Tsongkhapa, when he actually did a huge amount of prostrations, he did like 100,000 prostrations to each of the 35 Buddhas. When we do 100 a day, it's like, oh, do 100 a day. But because Lama Tsongkhapa, he did kind of 100,000 prostrations to each of the 35 Buddhas, 35 times 100,000. So it's quite a bit, And he saw them. So that's that's the difference. But of course, you have to be realistic and see what the body can take and what time you have. And I see myself when I was in the monastery, it was, it's quite okay to do some prostrations, but now I'm getting older and then it's a bit kind of more difficult. Yeah, sorry, Jackie is putting her hand up or?
Can you adjust your camera?
Say again?
Can you adjust your camera, ask Thomas? Because we can see the Buddhas and you are blurred. The Buddhas are very clear, but less.
Better?
Thank you. Yeah, much better. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there's two options. You can have TENZIN NAMDAK in the picture or the Buddhas. Sometimes we have this option of, you can blur one and then, now it's okay? Yeah? Okay, sorry, yeah. New camera, new challenges, you see? Yeah. So this 35 Buddhas, Lama Zopa Rinpoche did so many, and then he saw them. So, but we make it easy for you. So yeah, I will, I have a lot of things to do, but yeah, I will prepare. We can prepare a kind of picture with a prayer, then it's easy to see the 5 groups. And it will take time, right, to visualize them. So initially, you just think they're all there, right? You only think they're all there in front, and then in front of them, you make prostrations. Yeah? And then if you prostrate towards your altar, then also there are holy objects. So from that point of view, there's a kind of important factors of prostrating to a holy object. Yeah? So you can, what I said, you can do 2 ways. You can just recite one name. It's initially easier to memorize. So you look at the name of the first Buddha, and then you keep prostrating while reciting the name of that Buddha, right? Then you do it like 10 times or 3 times, whatever time you have, and you can do. And then you go to the next name. You recite and make prostrations. Yeah, that's a way to memorize that. You can do it like that. And also easy way to count, There are also counters you can buy, like you put on your, I'll show you tomorrow what to bring. So you can put on your fingers and then just count the prostrations, right? So if you accumulate, the same thing as what I discussed before the break, if you write down all the teachings you received and all the practice you've done, it helps you to rejoice, right? So that's why numbers are helpful. Numbers are not the most important thing. When you prostrate, you make sure you have the 4 opponent powers. You do it not just to accumulate, right? You do it to purify, right? But if you keep track of the numbers, it can help you later on to rejoice, But keep it for yourself. Don't put on your social media, I did this amount of prostrations, I'm doing this. That's not very good. I see some Buddhists, I received this teaching and this initiation and but that creates obstacles. Keep secret. All your only practice you keep secret, and the teachings you received and all those things. Generally speaking, you don't put on put on the market because it goes on the market, then it goes. Yeah. So keep that for yourself. Also, insights you have, only discuss it with really close Dharma friends. You can talk about it, but only those who are, you feel comfortable with and close to you and are similar and teachings and teachers, So that you can discuss, but other than that, keep it kind of, it's important, Geshe-la Rinpoche, one of my main teachers in Sera, he did his 19-year retreat, but everything he did, he never said anything to people, what he did. Very quiet. So he kept, and he always, when he teaches, especially in private settings, he says, 2 things very important in these practices is faith and keep things secret. So it's important to seal our insights and realizations to come. Make sure they don't degenerate. So that's quite important. But keep for yourself, and then you can rejoice. And you can help others who are close to you. When I said, like the Dharma friends, you can share. Yeah, there's a little bit about prostration. So the way to memorize, you take one Buddha at a time, and memorize and make prostrations to that Buddha, and calculate or count, right? Then go to the next Buddha. So that's one way to do it. If you have memorized the 35 Buddhas, the names, then to recite, often it goes quicker, right? So you can recite while making prostrations. That's also a tradition. You can also be done. Yeah. But then when you make prostrations, you think those Buddhas are actually in front. Yeah, there's many more visualizations as possible, but maybe I tell you that another time, otherwise it becomes too complicated. Yeah. But the main thing to think is that, same as we do with the nectar light, when you make prostrations to those 35 Buddhas in front, or you imagine they are there, right, or have the faith they are there, light rays comes from them, their hearts, and comes to the crown of your head, as well as all sentient beings, and purifies. Right? You see that? So we are making prostrations, that's also mental, that's the mental thing. You know? We physically prostrate, verbally we recite the prayer or the names, yeah? And then mentally we think the prostrate and the purification is happening. So purification, especially with prostrations, can be quite powerful because there's hardship involved, right? Especially when you get a bit older, I notice myself, you know, that is not, it doesn't go that I cannot push that more as I used to do when I was like 15 years younger. So yeah, there's a difference, but there's a hardship involved, so that it's very beneficial to see purification. Or when you do Nyungye, the purification practice of Vajrayana, very powerful because it has this aspect of difficulty, you know. So that's two ways, right? You can recite one name, make prostrations, accumulate. Or you recite all the names and keep prostrating by imagining those 35 Buddhas are in front, right? Then there's the verses, remaining kind of verses, which talks about confessing negative deeds, right? Then you can sit down and just recite, yeah, because you have memorized it. So when you recite the 35 Buddhas, the names, you prostrate, right? Then you sit down, and it's maybe easier for you, and then you can recite the remaining verses of the prayer of the 35 Buddhas. Yeah? So that talks about confessing negative deeds and then rejoicing in positive things. Yeah? Yeah, is that clear a little bit? Yeah, we give you a booklet and you can read, and then when there's any questions, we can discuss next time we meet or something like that. Yeah? Yeah, so that's the prostration for his peace of mind. And then that's the first limb also, yeah, as we discussed. And then you present these offerings, yeah, actual and imagined, yeah, limb number 2. And then, you know, declare my negative actions since beginning of this lifetime. Yeah. That's the confession aspect. And you rejoice in the merits of holy ordinary beings. Yeah. That's kind of the rejoicing in the positive things or the good deeds you've done. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, is kind of easy to do it. You don't need that much effort. It's very important. So also if you read biography, for example, I find it very helpful. If you read biography, just to rejoice in what you're reading, and then take the book, put on the crown of your head, and make strong prayer. May you become like this master. You know? That puts very positive imprints in the mind. You know? From one point of view, the object, and the person you're reading about is a holy being, right? And then the intention behind it, so it can be very powerful, right? And rejoice, right? So that rejoicing is quite important. When I was in the monastery and being there for 20 years, and not every day is sunshine. Of course, the weather is pretty warm, but yeah, sometimes it's a bit difficult, you know. So and the conditions with roommates and noise and yeah. Anyway, so then sometimes I'm a bit down, and I was reading biographies, and some biographies were so inspiring that my mind was completely lifted up again, but then it prevented me from studying because I want to read the biography. Yeah. But it helps, you know, those inspiring stories, and it helps rejoicing, a very powerful aspect, you know. And then, yeah, the 2 limbs of making requests and turn the wheel of the Dharma, as we discussed. Also very important to make requests, to receive teachings, to meet the teaching again and again. So His Holiness often explains, also in a more traditional audience, to recite this last verse of the Foundation of All Qualities, right? That in all future lifetimes never be parted from the precious Guru, and then to progress by practicing the Dharma on the grounds and paths and achieve the state of Vajrayana. Right? So the Gurus, they make prayers. Right? If you also make prayers, then it becomes a meeting again and again, right? So then we sealed in future lifetimes. So it's very important. Thanks to the Guru, we get hooked, and then we keep that hook alive, so to say, in future lifetimes. You know, it's very important. Because if we don't get hooked, it's very easy just to wander around in samsara without getting a connection. You see yourself, right? Before I was 23, I didn't hear the Buddhist doctrine in my ear, you know. So that means that just wandering around in this place, and then kind of teachers, they hook me, and then that was it, the connection. You know? So they make prayers in the future to have that again and again and again, and then it's kind of a matter of time, right? And we develop. You know, it's very important. Okay. So that's why these two limbs are here in the seven limb prayer. You know, it's very important. Okay. Because without being in this hook, then it's very easy not to meet, you know. You can see sometimes people don't have the karma, they don't meet, you know. And life goes, time goes by, finished. You know? And then dedicates the merit, as we discussed, to move your positive potential in a particular direction. Yeah. So then traditional, after the seven limb prayer, we offer a mandala, you know. So also that I will explain next year in September, with, you know, real mandala base, and show you how to do that. You know, because in the DP, the main emphasis is on Vajrasattva and prostrations, right? So tomorrow I will explain to you how to do Vajrasattva practice, and then mandalas I will explain in next year in September when we finished. You know, when we finished this program, then yeah, we explain all the 9 preliminaries. Okay. So mandala, without having the base and the grains or whatever you use, you can also do it with your hands, right? Like that. Yeah. My cameraman is coming. See? Yeah. You see? So you can put your hands like this. So this one, the 2 ring fingers, they are the Mount Meru. You know, it's kind of, this actually represents the universe. If the universe is really like this or not, from the point of view of ordinary perception, that's a question. But from the point of view of certain karma aspects, but the main thing is the symbolism, right? That it symbolizes the center of the universe, or Mount Meru, so to say, and then 4 continents. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I have to count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see that? So there's 4 continents, and then sun and moon that you have to visualize. You know, so the main thing is when you do this, and then if you have a mala, you can put inside, you know, to don't have empty space. You know? Also, yeah, I forgot to mention that when you offer water bowls, you know, with what I explained this morning, then also you never offer some empty bowl on the altar. So when you have this bowl, do you have one? Now it becomes very practical, you see. Yeah. So we have this bowl, you see, beautiful one. Yeah. So then you never put like this on the altar. So when you set out your 7 bowls, you know, with water, yes, with those representing those 7 offerings, yeah, you put a little bit of water inside and then put on the altar. After having saying Om Ahum and have the purified with incense, right? So then you never put empty. It's inauspicious to offer empty things. You know? Yeah. So, and also when you empty them, so in the morning you fill them, in the afternoon or evening you empty them, right? So when you empty them, you put the bowls upside down on the altar after, you know, to dry them, and put like that. Yeah, you see that? Then also when you fill the bowl, you don't fill it like half, like a cappuccino. You don't fill like that. You fill not completely to the brim, because also that's very difficult to drink for the Buddhas, I mean, for the guests, right? So you fill till, they mostly say till 1 seed, what is it? Wheat seed, right? A seed of wheat, you know? You see that these days in the shops? You know, in India you can buy all kind of seeds, but here is all in a package already made into flour or something. Yeah. But anyway, it's kind of, what is it, like a millimeter or something like that from the top. Normally when we give coffee or tea to a person, if you fill it to the brim, then it's very difficult to drink, right? So similar here, you know? Yeah. Yeah. And then also when you put so this is the other bowl. If you put them together, you don't put them together. You put them slightly from each other. You know, also one grain. Yeah, grain is a better term. A grain in between. You see that? Yeah, it's two things. Yeah, so there's two things to know, that you never offer empty things. Yeah, that clear? Yeah. So that's also why when you offer the mandala, of course, you imagine it's all. But yeah, like a mala or something, or sometimes you put some rice here in the palm of your hands, in traditional teaching. That means it's not empty. You know? You see that? You can see it or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the after the seven limb, traditionally we say a mandala. So when we do the sessions here, we always say Saje Bögi, right? The short mandala offering we do. So it says this ground, yeah, meaning the base, anointed with perfume, strewed with flowers. So imagine it's amazing. It's not just fingers there, but it's amazing world systems, beautiful, with flowers and lakes and mountains and just everything that's beautiful, right? That's what you imagine. Or there's a description of how the Pure Lands are. That's one, I translated one that you can download from this kind of how the Pure Land of Sugavati looks like. It's very inspiring. I was never into Pure Lands until Rinpoche asked me to translate this text. It's very inspiring. So yeah, you can read that, how you can, if you visualize like that, it's very beneficial. So yeah, imagine that, you know, adorned with Mount Meru, it says. So the actual verse, it says, this ground, anointed with perfume, strewed with flowers, I mean a beautiful kind of ground, right? Adorned with Mount Meru, so that's the center, right? This thing, the center. Yeah. 4 continents, so there are the 4 continents, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Sun and moon. So then the sun and moon you visualize here, right? That's the Tibetan way of indicating with your chin. Here. Yeah. So the sun and moon. You imagine there's a world system beautified with sun and moon or stars and whatever is beautiful, right? Down below and up in the sky. You know. Yeah. So that's what it says. Adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, sun and moon. Imagine this as a Buddha field, you see? So that what we just said with the prostrations, transforming body, speech and mind, right? With those points yeah? So here, same thing. It's not an ordinary world system with pandemics and you know, choppers who make a lot of noise and those things. It's not like that. It's a pure field, right? The Buddha field, that's what it says. Imagine this as a Buddha field. So when I was translating that text, it's very inspiring to see that even the trees, you know, the wind goes to the trees and that produces the sound of the Dharma, and the birds, and not like Dorje maybe, but you don't know. But you know, those kind of beings, they produce the sound of the Dharma, right? And so imagine that amazing kind of world like that, Pure Lands. You know? So that's what it says. Imagine this as a Pure Land. So see it as. There's a literal term. So see it as, or have this transformation aspect and offer it, because then it becomes pure, right? Same with the water bowls. Don't think it's just water out of the tap. You know, just think it's the, and then of course from the filter or whatever. I think it's the purest of the purest. That's very important. You know, when Ashok, King Ashok, you know, King Ashoka from India, who built like countless stupas when he was king, so rich, you know. So how did this wealth come? When he was a young boy at the time of the Buddha, he was very poor, but he had sand, and he thought this sand was pure gold, you know? And then offered to the Buddha in his begging bowl like that. So that created a cause for him to be born as an incredible wealthy king, you know. So then also when we put the water bowls, don't think it's just water, right? Think it's this ultimate ultimate essence or nectar with which the ultimate happiness can be achieved, right? And that is the aspect of drinking water, washing water, flowers, incense, light, and perfume and food. Yeah? So that's very important to do that. Yeah. So that's, and then when you make, same as prostrations, when you make a mandala offering like that, with the Saji Purkis we do in the beginning of every session, right? Think you're not only one, but countless emanations of yourself. They make these mandala offerings. And each emanation multiplies, and that multiplies, that multiplies. So you can imagine the whole world is filled with making mandala offerings. Yeah? Yeah, so that's how we do a tradition, doing a teaching or doing talks or whatsoever, yeah, like this. Yeah. So then there's another way with a base. If you want to accumulate mandalas later on, then you can buy these bases, kind of base with rings, and you buy grains and you put some nice stones inside the grains or between the grains, and then you build up a kind of structure of the universe, so to say. So we can explain that another time. But the basic principles are the same. Yeah? You have to put a little bit more effort. Yeah? And then later on you accumulate short mandalas in also a number. Yeah? So then you can have a counter, same as prostrations. Yeah? So Lama Zopa also accumulated so many mandala offerings until his hand was just bleeding, because he used a flat piece of stone. But yeah, anyway, that's very austere. But yeah, he got all realizations. But yeah, we can buy all kind of bases, and then can do that. But anyway, I'll explain that later on. Otherwise, it becomes too much. But at least now we have a little idea about what it's all about in those kasa. Yeah. So the 7 prayers we discussed. We discussed the mandala offering. I have to look at my list of the things I have to do. And then, yeah, you have a discussion, right, in the afternoon? Yeah? Right? Yeah. Checking? Yeah. So we can discuss. The questions are related with the 7 prayers, as well as with kasa, the 6 preliminaries, as we just discussed. Yeah? And then, tomorrow, right, afternoon, checking, we have a discussion, no? That's normal, right? Yeah? Yeah, and then I come back after discussion at 3:15 and see if there's any more questions. And then tomorrow I will go over the 4 measurables, as well as Vajrasattva, as well as the Vajrayana precepts. Yeah? All right, if there are any questions now, then we can still spend some minutes on that.
Question, Maya?
Hello?
Yeah, hey Geshe-la. Thank you so much.
Because I was
I have a question that actually I was thinking about senses that I just wonder. Within the statues, right? There is mantras and prayers sometimes, and also sometimes I guess relics, depends what you put in it. So I was just wondering, why is this something that you don't put on text, since it has text within it? And I was just curious about it. Not that I do it, but I was just wondering. That's one thing. And the other thing, I have a recording of the 35 Compassion Buddhas I did for the Vajrasattva in Toshita. And also there is the colors of the family Buddhas and what you purify when you prostrate. Yeah. So I did it for them. If you want, I can somehow give it, or...
Send it to me, then I have a look. Is it okay?
What?
Can you send it to me? Do you have
I will send it to you. Yes, I will send it to you.
Thanks. Saves me time. I had a look online, but I couldn't find also with Vajrasattva something proper kind of. Anyway.
No, yeah, I have it. I did it for them last year.
Okay, yeah. If you can send to me, then I will look.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it.
Then regarding your question,
yeah,
it's true. Statues and stupas, they are filled with mantras and relics, right? So they by itself very precious, but it symbolizes something. So that symbolism is also very important, right? So the Buddha and the actual text has 2 different ways of symbolizing things, right? though they're filled. Yeah? So that makes it kind of a precious object. Yeah? But the Buddha's body symbolizes something, the stupa symbolizes something, and the text, they symbolize something. Right? So the texts are more superior. Yeah? So once there was a Buddhist magazine on the table, and somebody offered His Holiness body, speech, and mind. So offered the statue, offered the stupa, and offered the text. Right? And then somebody put the stupa on a Buddhist magazine. It was just a Buddhist magazine. So I said, don't put it on a Buddhist magazine. Mm-hmm. So because, of course, the stupa and the statue is filled, but it represents the body and the mind, right? Yeah. And among the body, speech, and mind, the speech is for us extremely important, right? The respect for the Dharma as such. And so that's probably the reason why we put the text always in the highest, just because it's a mental thing. You know? If you completely understand it, it's a different story, but our mind is still occupied by these conventional concepts, right? If you highly realize and see everything in the nature of bliss and emptiness, then it's a different story. But for our ordinary beings, then we should see what's most important. You see that? So from that point, there's the vision is there. Yeah. And of course, depends on your discriminating of understanding what's inside and not, but that's normally how it has been explained. Yeah. And what it represents, so to say. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for this clarification.
And it's very true, because certain texts, they're so precious. You know? Because by reading that, you get the realizations, right? And by seeing a statue or seeing a stupa, you get blessings and there's a possibility of transformation. But to get the real realizations, you have to depend on the text. Right? And it's even more true for people who have secret visions, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like you and me, not on Zoom, but in reality, you know, having communicating, just talking about, oh, how is this emptiness, how is that emptiness? So then they asked Manjushri, what do I have to do? And then Manjushri said, you read the text of Nagarjuna. It's not that, oh, you just sit down, I give you everything you need. It's not like that, you see? So that's also kind of, from these kind of examples, it's not that the Buddha can bestow the realizations, right? It has to come from these scriptures, written by realized beings. Yeah, so, yeah, that makes it maybe clear. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Can I ask some questions? So Geshe-la, I wanted to have your advice on how to complete 100,000 prostrations, which is obviously it's required as part of this course as well. But generally, what would your advice be to sort of complete, you know, the number of prostrations? Because, you know, I think generally if we do 3 prostrations in the morning and 3 in the evenings, I just wonder what your advice will be, you know, for an effective completion. Yeah. And then I also had a question around how, you know, you mentioned that the 7 limbs prayer is a purification prayer, if you like, and that is also similar to Vajrayana practice. Mm-hmm. I just wonder how the two relate to each other, or what the differences are, particularly with regards to refuge, remedy, resolve, and taking refuge.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how to accumulate? Yeah. Is it Vajrasattva or prostrations or mandalas? It's good first, especially with prostrations, to start slowly, because it's a physical thing and you might not have, your body is not used to that, right? It's very also, it's a very good exercise, but it's not the main motivation, of course. But so you start slowly, you know, with a few a day, you know, and then you can build up, you know. You do initially 3, and then you do like a few times, a few days, you do 10 or 11, more auspicious, for example, right? And then a few days later you do 21, right? A few days later you do about 50, yeah. And then if you do like 50 a day, it's not that kind of, that heavy, right? On a daily basis, and it doesn't take that much time, you see? And if you get a habit, then also the hardship becomes less, because your body gets used to it, right? So if you do 50 like that, and then whenever you have some extra time, you can do some more, right? Mm-hmm. You can accumulate, and there's some people, they go to Bulgaria, go to a special holy place and spend, 2 or 3 months doing 100,000. It's also possible. If the body is already used to the build-up, right? Yeah. So make sure you have this build-up, otherwise you're gonna have, if you push too much in the beginning, you get a lot of and you can continue, right? So continuation is most important. Yeah. Yeah, so you have an idea how to structure that, right? So build it up slowly, and then whenever there's time, you can enhance that, yeah, or make it more in number, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the 7-limb prayer in relation to Vajrasattva and all.
So it was actually the 35 confession Buddhas, wasn't it? Because it's also a purification practice like Vajrasattva. So I just wonder what the key differences were, if any.
So the 7-limb prayer is actually a preliminary to the actual practice. For example, first you take refuge, right?
Yeah.
Very simple. Then you recite the 7-limb prayer. Then you recite the short mandala offering. And then you do the 35 Buddhas of confession practice. You see that? So
Yeah.
7-limb prayer is a kind of preliminary practice, which includes also confession, but that's traditionally how it's been done. I will explain a little bit more tomorrow in a practical way how to structure a session, right? So that means is taking of refuge, you recite the 7-limb prayer, then you do a short mandala offering, and then you can do any practice. If it's Vajrasattva, it's Vajrasattva. If it's 35 Buddhas confessions, 35 Buddhas of confession, and then you conclude with a dedication, which is actually also included in the 7-limb, but you do that to conclude, right? Yeah, yeah, you see that?
Okay. Yeah.
So the 7-limb prayer stands by itself, yeah, as well as is an important part in any prayer we do as a preliminary. Yeah, you see that?
Yeah. So it's actually a different phase from that comes after. When you start your preliminary practices, then 35 confession Buddhas comes sort of towards in step 4, 5. Yeah.
But there's also a possibility to combine it, right? So we are free in that. You can take refuge, and then you do first limb, you do prostrations, right? And then you make more offerings, and you do the limb of making offerings. There's many. It's just what benefits your mind. Also, you also have to look in that aspect.
So there is some flexibility,
of course,
in terms of how you do your practice. Yeah.
Yeah, but the structure comes from the lineage, so there's great benefit to do it that way. But if you think, okay, now make prostrations and recite this verse, or there's more elaborate 7-limb prayers, right? So if you do elaborate 7-limb prayer, then you do prostrations, first limb. Then you make offerings to the altar, put the 7-limb practice related to that. Then you do again a kind of, I declare my negative deeds, you do Vajrasattva at that time, right? So there's all kind of things you can build in and make this 7-limb prayer a kind of elaborate prayer with all these things. Each line, we make it longer, right? So we can make the 7 limbs longer, make it kind of a complete, longer practice of puja or whatsoever. So, yeah. So
Thank you.
Freedom to do that wherever benefits the mind, right? In that way.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Then,
Geshe-la, do you want to take some more questions, or you want to break for lunch?
I see 2 more hands.
Yeah, Radu, I'll unmute him. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So we may be sometime in an environment where it's necessary to be quiet, for example.
Yeah.
Like there are people around which are sleeping.
Yeah.
Or simply we don't want to share with the others around. How can we make the prostration saying? Is it to say good also only mentally, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. We have to see if you with your kind of practice for the benefit of all sentient beings, if you harm beings, then you should not do that, right? So that means that you have to be skillful. Yeah, if people get annoyed by making noise, then you don't do that. Yeah, so you can. The main thing is mental in those situations.
Perfect. Perfect.
So same with offering tea or food, and you can just before you start having a meal with somebody, just mentally nobody realizes or recognizes you offering to the Buddha, right? It just within a few seconds you can just do that, So you don't, if you live with people who are not Buddhist or who find it difficult, if you fold your hands before you start with meals or something, you don't do that, right? It's kind of inner. What I said, Buddhism is an inner kind of. We say a Buddhist. We say Nampa. It means inner being. Literal translation. Yeah. So you have to be skillful, you know, with those situations. Yeah. You can just do it mentally. Yeah.
Thank you. That's sweet to me. And a second question regarding the statues. So ideally, we should buy them or have them from a monastery, definitely. But it happened to have them as a present. I don't know. Let's say ordered on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
Some of them are filled already and sealed.
Yeah.
Some of them are empty.
Yeah.
What to do with the empty one? I mean, normally you should go in a monastery and then there will be consecrated, so on.
Yeah.
But until then, what to do? Is it unauspicious to put them on an altar already if they are not filled, or how to?
So it's best not to write something like a mantra, if you know how to write a mantra, or Om Hum on a piece of paper, put inside, right? As a temporary solution. And then whenever there's a consecration or filling of mantras being done at a center or whatsoever, then you can ask or request the center to do that. So we have a lot of work, as you can see. The statues also still have to be filled. But yeah, if there's some other statues, then we can help out and do it in one go, right? So that, we can organize.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Or wherever you live, and then you have a center like that close by, we can do it. You know? Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Question,
Thank you.
Geshe-la, from Liz.
Liz, yeah. Someone's coming.
Thank you, Geshe-la. So my question is about the cloth on the altars, and if there's particular types of cloth that we should be looking for, and the significance of the cloth.
So traditionally we have kind of light colors like white or yellow, right? So also with flowers you offer, those colors are mostly kind of advised, you know. With colors of cloth don't have like the blood red color or something, or black. It's kind of inauspicious colors, they say. So I have kind of, you know, light yellowish color is always good. But make sure there's no letters on it. So some people, there's different katas you can use. There's katas with letters and katas just with an ordinary pattern, you know. So you don't use things with letters because you're going to put things on top, right? So there you can check. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. That is it for today. Not for today, but for this morning. It's already afternoon, though. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then we do a short dedication before you have your lunch, and then offer to all the Buddhas. And then enjoy your lunch, and then you have discussion after, and then we meet again at 3:15, right? Okay, so then, enjoy your discussion, and if things are not clear, then you can still see me. Yeah, things are not clear, then we can discuss. It's okay. It's just the sound is moving. Yeah. So dedicate. Just make a quick one. So dedicate. 3 important things to dedicate towards too. Generous, according to Lama Zopa, is for spreading of Buddha Dharma, long and healthy life, precious gurus, and enlightenment of all sentient beings. Yeah, so if you summarize that, then think that these teachings go in all different directions, and all beings meet it and create cause for enlightenment. First. And then for the Gurus to have a long and healthy life, and all the wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. In particular, His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and all other teachers you have a connection with, pray for the long and healthy life, and their wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Thank you. And then for all sentient beings, quickly to achieve the state of enlightenment and generate the 2 bodhicittas in the mind stream of bodhicitta of wanted to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, and the ultimate bodhicitta of emptiness, realization. That's the non-duality of those 2 in order to quickly achieve the state of enlightenment. Janjo Sanjo Rinpoche, Maje Pana, Gigi, Geba Nyamba Meba, Yam Gonen Gonde Beba, Tony Tawa Rinpoche, Maje Pana, Geba Nyamba Meba, Gonen Gonde Geba Yunda Yamba, Demajura, Sarah Lampi Yunda, Deutsche Changi, Goba Nyamba. Right? Don't forget to seal with emphasis. Also think that you making the dedication itself, and we dedicate to it too, is also empty of inherent existence, right? And that's why, because of this interdependence, that's why the prayers come through. So think like that. All right, thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch, and then yeah, see you. Enjoy your discussion, and then see you yeah, around 3:15, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Bye.